Hi everybody, welcome to week 2 of the Birch Gnomes Quilt Along. We are going to make those adorable little gnome blocks this week, and let's go ahead and get started. You're going to be using those cute little gray print fabrics that you gathered from week 1, and the off-white or white fabric that's solid, the light gray fabric that is solid as well or close to solid, and your peach solid or tone-on-tone print. So what you're going to want to do, because we are going to be sewing together some pieces and then cutting them from templates that you'll find within the pattern, and those templates cut triangles on the bias, it's a good idea to go ahead and spray starch or use some sizing finish to go ahead and get those fabrics a little bit more firmed up so that they don't want to stretch all wonky for you as you're working with them. So I recommend using your ironing board, not your pressing mat. You don't want to spray starch right on your pressing mat or even use it near spray starch. It'll get all gummed up and gunky for you, and it's not a good situation. So we will set the peach fabric aside for right now. We are not going to spray starch that one. That one we're going to end up putting some fusible web on the back so that we can cut out and put on our little gnome noses as applique. So you want to press your cream fabric, your gray fabric, and your gray print fabrics, and then let's go ahead and get that done, and we'll take it from there. Okay, I've got 3 pieces cut out here according to the directions on the pattern. So you want a big gray print rectangle, a gray print strip, and a white rectangle. What you're going to do next is you're going to go ahead and set that strip aside, and you're going to sew together your white and your gray print along the edge that will be the longer edge of the white rectangle. So go ahead and sew those together. You're going to press it towards the gray side once you have them sewn together, and then we'll cut out that triangle using template A. And I just want to quickly mention that on all of our pieces that we're going to be sewing for the blocks and the quilt in general, we'll be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I have my 2 rectangles sewn together, and I have it pressed, the seam pressed towards that gray fabric. So we are going to use the template A to go ahead and get the triangle for the gnome hat and beard cut out. I've used regular scissors, not my fabric scissors, of course, to cut out all of the templates that you'll find within the pattern. And if you purchase the digital pattern and printed off your templates, you'll want to make sure that you've double checked and measured against the 1 inch square that is on the template page to make sure that your template's printed at the accurate size. So what you will do with template A is line up the bottom of that triangle to the bottom of your white, what's going to be the gnome beard, and then that should line up perfectly along that side, and you should have just a little bit of gray sticking above the tip of the triangle. What I do then is I just carefully use my plastic ruler and I lay it and align it right along the edge of that template. So you'll go ahead and carefully cut out each side of the triangle. You might have just a smidge of the template that comes out, but you can cut just a little bit to the other side of that if you'd like to. What I'll do here is I'll go ahead and turn this around so that I can lay my ruler on top. So I'm just lining up the bottom edge and the cut edge again, and then go ahead and cut out the other side of the template. And these are just little scraps that you can, if you save something that small, put in your scrap bin. Okay, so you've got the majority of the triangle cut out. What you'll notice though is you'll want to get a hold of these points on each side, and you'll want to trim those down. There's little angle cuts that you'll want to make, and you can just freehand cut those. It doesn't take much. Those are the pieces that will line up when we sew this triangle to the solid gray sides. So go ahead and get all of those cut out. And there you go. And there will be your gnome body that you'll make the block out of. I'm taking my gray solid fabric that I have pre-starched, and I'm going to be using templates B and potentially template C to cut out the triangles that are going to form the sides of the gnome block. I have my fabric squared off on one side so I know that I don't have any little gaps underneath, and I'm going to keep my fabric folded in half. By doing that and keeping a double layer of fabric, you can just use template B. You don't need to use template C, because what you're going to get when you cut out this triangle is a reverse triangle, which basically is what template C is going to want to achieve as well. So by doubling up the fabric, I can just set template C aside. Now, if I had a single layer of fabric, then what I could do is I could maybe match up template B and template C, and I can just cut from a single layer. It just depends on how much fabric you have and how much you're working with. But if you bought the right fabric yardage that we went over with in week 1, you should be good to go to keep your fabric doubled up. So again, I cut out my template, and I am going to align the straight side of the triangle to the edge of the fabric that I've squared away. And I'm going to again carefully use my plastic ruler to hold that triangle in place. I'm going to go over just not even 1/8 of an inch, just a smidge, so that I don't catch any of that paper when I'm cutting with my rotary cutter. I guess an alternative would be you could trace your triangles out and cut them out by hand as well, but I think that this saves a ton of time by using the rotary cutter. So just cut up until where the bottom of that triangle is going to be. Didn't go all the way through. Well, there we go. Okay, and then fold that other side back. Then what you can do is just carefully, without moving the triangle, and it's easier said than done, hold it in place because it likes to stick, and go ahead and move your ruler to line up to the bottom of that triangle piece. And if it moves around, just get it set back in place. You've got 2 sides to line it up to now. There we go. Take a little more right here so that I can start my cut. Okay. So what you'll notice again, you'll have a piece down in this corner and up on top that you're going to want to just trim to line up to the template. So just carefully hold the template in place and snip those couple little snips that you need to make. Okay, and that's going to get you 2 triangles. If you notice, you open them up. You've got 1 triangle that would match up with template B and 1 triangle that matches up with template C. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take that gnome triangle that we cut from template A, and we're going to be putting these together to make the block. So what you're going to do is use the template from template, or the triangle from template B. And if you're not quite sure which one that was again, it's that one right there. You're going to go right sides together, so go ahead and flip it over and line up those points that you carefully snipped off of the edge of the triangle. And go ahead and get that lined up nicely, and then you're going to want to have your straight pins on hand and go ahead and get that pinned in place. Now you want to make sure that this lines up pretty accurately so that your block sews up true to size and you don't have to do any trimming later. And once you get that pinned in place, then what you're going to do is go ahead and sew those two pieces together and press the seam towards the gray, light gray solid side. Okay, I've got that unit sewn together and I've got the seam pressed towards that light gray solid side. So you'll see again that that left side of your gnome head matches up with template B once it's pressed open again. And then you're going to take that side that you cut from template C and place it along the right side. Go ahead and flip it over so that it's right sides together. Line up your little corners that you cut from your template that match up. Line up the sides. Go ahead and get that pinned in place to hold it nice and even, and let's get it sewn pressed towards the gray side again, and let's go from there. Okay, I have got my gnome top part of my block all done. Again, template B goes on the left, template C goes on the right. You can see those line up. And I have gotten my peach fabric with the fusible web all prepared. And what I've done is peeled off that paper. And I like to cut the peach pieces into just, I guess, workable little triangles so that you can go ahead and use your scissors to cut out the nose from template D. Now, every single nose doesn't have to be exactly accurate. If you go outside the lines a little bit when you're cutting, it doesn't matter. I think it adds to the uniqueness of each gnome block if the noses are just a little bit different, but they're all pretty similar in size. And I like to place the nose mostly on the white, which is the beard part, with just a little bit sticking up onto the gray. And what you'll do then is get that pressed in place, and we're going to go ahead and put a few stitches around the nose to hold it securely. So I pressed the gnome nose onto my block according to the directions on my fusible web. And then I did not use any special presser feet, but what I did is extend my stitch length by just a little bit. I think I used a 2.5 stitch length. And I just started a little back stitch and I went around 2 or 3 times that little gnome nose. As you're sewing, you're going to go real slow and you're just going to keep churning your block underneath your presser foot. And if you need to stop, you can go ahead and do that. This stitch around the gnome nose doesn't need to be perfect. It can look a little messy. I think it adds to the uniqueness of each of the gnomes by just having them look all a little bit different. So I'll turn my block so that you can see it, not upside down, but right side up, I guess. So what we're going to do next is finish off the block by taking that gray print strip that we had cut earlier. Now I cut mine from a different fabric. You can match that up to the hat if you want to. I cut it differently because I like the real scrappy look, but it just depends on what you're wanting to achieve. So that is going to get sewn right along the bottom of your gnome head unit, I guess. Go ahead and sew that right sides together. Put a couple pins in place so that it doesn't move while you're sewing it. And then when we're done sewing it, we're going to press the seam towards this gray print fabric so that you can't see it underneath the white. Okay, I went ahead and sewed that bottom piece on. I pressed the seam towards that gray print fabric. And take a peek at the measurement on your pattern that this block is supposed to measure out as. If you need to, you can very carefully trim a little bit off the edges or bottom or top if you need to make it equal to that measurement that the pattern indicates. And no matter what I do like to do is you're going to end up with just a little bit of a dog ear on the top of that piece. So go ahead and use your rotary cutter and snip that See how minuscule that was, that little dog ear off. And that finishes off your adorable little gnome block. So have fun making all 24 of them. Have fun experimenting with your arrangement of fabrics with the blocks, and we will move on to the tree block in week 3.